Azure Security Center in the Field, episode 8. We are still overwhelmed by the amount of great news that we released at Ignite. And today we are going to do a follow-up conversation on some of the Ignite announcements. And this one is a very powerful announcement that we released, which is the multi-cloud capability. And to really present this, and we're going to talk with the PM from the Azure Security Center engineering team in our Israeli office. That was behind this whole architecture and how this multi-cloud works. So I'd like to welcome Adam Zamri.
Hey, Yuri.
Hello,
It's
Adam.
great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you a lot for coming to the show, and really appreciate the fact that you're taking this time to talk to us on your Friday. So tell us a little bit more about your role at Microsoft in the Azure Security Center team, what you do, some of the things that you are working on right now.
Sure. So I'm part of the Azure Security Center product team. My focus or my area of responsibility is mostly really about the feature we're going to talk about later on today. It's the multi-cloud support. It's how can we extend our capabilities for Azure resources as we provide it today and extend it to other clouds and other environments.
Excellent. This is a very powerful feature, and a feature that a lot of customers were really looking for. So since this is a very new capability, could you please give us a brief overview of how this connection of Azure Security Center with other cloud providers works?
Sure. So yes, this really is an exciting feature that we really just released, and it is coming after a lot of customer requests that are facing a difficult problem. They're having complex environments, complicated, and they're looking for a consistent solution to cover all of their security management issues. So customers may have their environment mostly in Azure, but also some resources in AWS, in Google Cloud Platform, and other clouds, and they're looking for the single consistent solution to help them overcome this. And really, this is what our integration is all about. Really providing customers the single solution, single management in a single place. I think before we'll dive into really what the feature is about, it's leveraging a lot of Azure Arc. So maybe I'll just explain a bit about that.
I think that'll be great. Yeah.
Great. So Azure Arc basically, that was an Ignite announcement last year, and it's really bringing in resources outside of Azure into the Azure management capabilities and allowing customers to simplify their management on resources. Basically, it projects resources from outside of Azure into Azure, and then you can really enjoy and leverage all the capabilities offered by Azure. For Security Center, this is a really big deal. So part of our integration is connecting to the different cloud providers, AWS and GCP. And basically, for AWS, we search for the EC2 instances, the virtual machines in AWS, and we onboard them to Azure Arc. And once we have that, so all of these EC2 instances can enjoy and use the capabilities from Security Center. Basically, it becomes very similar to an Azure VM, enjoys all the capabilities, and really all the security management we have, capabilities, governance, our advanced threat protection as well, can be leveraged on these machines as if they were machines sitting inside of Azure. Mm-hmm. In addition, what we also do is for consistent management and governance, we're also integrating with the security tools by the cloud providers. So for AWS, it's Security Hub, and for GCP, it's Security Command Center. We're bringing in those recommendations into the Azure Security Center platform, meaning you can enjoy all the capabilities, and basically you can use it once for Azure, and it will work for all across the cloud. So for example, I know in the previous episodes of the ASC in the field, you've seen inventory, secure score, continuous export. All of these are also valid for the integration we're having today, meaning you will have the same use that you did for Azure resources and to use for resources in AWS and in GCP.
So Security Center is really becoming that location where you're going to see secure posture management, not only for Azure environment, but also for other cloud providers. And that's a great segue to the next question. So thanks for the great explanation. Now, for the AWS, which I believe we are calling AWS connector, and you can define those terminologies in more depth when you are answering. What are the what we are collecting actually, and what we are collecting when we communicate with AWS? Which data are we ingesting?
Sure. So I know that's also probably about a lot of users and customers are interested to know which permissions exactly are we getting from AWS. So as part of creating the connector, you really do grant us specific permissions just to enable this integration. We basically ingest several types of data. The first one is connecting into Security Hub and bringing in the security recommendations into a Security Center. And then it can be as any security recommendation we have today. And the second is we discover the EC2 instances in order to onboard them to Azure Arc as well.
I see. Yeah, that's good. Is this data, the data that we are collecting, that you just explained, is it stored on the log-analytic workspace by default, or it will only be stored if you are using the continuous export capability?
So that's a great question. The power of this integration is that we are leveraging existing capabilities for Azure resources, meaning today recommendations from AWS and GCP are basically in Azure Resource Graph, meaning you can see them there as well. And the same will work for continuous export. As they all showed in the previous episode with the continuous export, you can show all the recommendations that will include AWS and GCP, and you can direct them to a specific workspace. For Azure Arc, for example, it's acting as an Azure VM, very similar. So you can also install an extension of Log Analytics Agent, for example, and then you can also transfer data information about specific configuration and recommendations and to a workspace you choose.
So even if you are not using continuous export, you will see that information in Azure Resource Graph, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So once this connector is configured, does the data get updated frequently? Let's say I have this connector with AWS, and I remediate some of the recommendations that were proposed by Security Center on my AWS environment. Does the ASC dashboard reflect that immediately, or there is some sort of refreshing time behind the scenes?
Yes. So for Azure Arc machines, as they're reflected inside Security Center, that can be viewed by the freshness as was recently introduced in Security Center. And you can see that will apply for all the resources in that recommendation. For example, anti-malware. And for the recommendations themselves, if you remediate, for example, an F3 bucket or a specific configuration in an AWS account, this will apply and be visible after 6 hours, up to 6 hours.
Okay. All right. That's a great information. And is this time something that will vary according to the provider? I mean, for GCP is also 6, or is just for AWS?
So our service is basically scans in up to 6 hours.
Got it. Regardless of the provider. Understood.
Yes.
So that's good. So can you show us a little bit more about this in your demo?
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to. So this is the Security Center portal. Was just recently changed in Ignite. Had a nice change to the whole UI, which I think is great. And I'll walk us through the experience and really how the integration with AWS and GCP is integrated seamlessly into Security Center. So as you can see from the main dashboard already, you can see previously onboarded AWS accounts and GCP projects. As you can see also in the menu itself, you have here the cloud connectors. That's a new item. I know there's been a lot of changes here, but this is new. And as you can see here, I have also a few connectors already onboarded. One for AWS, one for GCP. It's all connected to a specific account or organization for GCP. So let's take, for example, how it would look like if I would like to onboard an AWS account. So I press here for an Add AWS. And what I do is, this is the connection I have to do, all the authentication for AWS. This is mostly done on the AWS side. Basically, we're given a role to the permissions from AWS. You choose a specific subscription on which all of our recommendations and all of the Azure Arc machines will be onboarded to. From that, the next step would be the Azure Arc configuration. So really, we do an automatically and continuous discovery of the EC2 instances and onboard them to Arc. So since these are reflected into Azure, they need to be configured to a specific resource group so they can really be presented properly into Security Center. So this is also the configuration, authentication as well. So let's go here and see what happens once I onboard a machine, once I onboard an account. So this is reflected in various places in the product. The first one we'll go through is inventory. So this is also Meital has went with you in one of the AC in the Fields episodes. So this is also a great feature. Really gives you a consistent view across all of the resources. And now we're extending it also to include resources from AWS and from GCP. So you can see here I have the AWS account. I can filter and look for these specific resources. So for example, I can see here AWS resources, GCP as well. I can view and look at which recommendations are relevant for them. And what another interesting thing here is, for example, you can see here I can filter by tag. And for example, what we do when we onboard the AWS instances, the EC2 instances, we also automatically assign Azure tags. Since this is reflected as an Azure resource, you can bring Azure tags on it, which is very powerful. So I can filter by that. I have a specific tag that looks for the AWS account. And I choose that. I can see all the machines that were onboarded from that account specifically and show them into Security Center. So you see here I have two EC2 instances. So I have here one EC2 that was onboarded from AWS with our service. This is really reflected as an Azure resource. You can see here the different recommendations. Once it has an alert for an Azure Arc machine will look as this, with our also a pretty brand new alert experience.
Yeah, this looks beautiful.
Yes. So you can see also we're leveraging the tags that we automatically onboard. You can see which AWS account it's relevant. You can see here the cloud. If you go into the specific, you can also see the instance ID. So you can really understand which of the resources in AWS it did happen on. So let's go through more places where this is reflected. As again, this is really integrated seamlessly across Security Center, basically extending our capabilities not just for Azure. So if we go to the recommendations, we can see that our secure score will include recommendations from AWS and from GCP. And that will map to our appropriate secure score controls. And you can see here we have different AWS recommendations on the resources. And now we have the secure score will basically be a single KPI for all the platforms all across. So if you look here, for example, for AWS Security Hub should be enabled. We're advising customers to really enable AWS Security Hub. You can see here as well the resource. If I'll go into it as well, I can see all the recommendations on that AWS resource with additional information on it as well. And for GCP, we can
now,
see...
one question here. If you go back to that recommendation, Adam, we are also providing the remediation steps?
Yes, we're providing the remediation steps, the direct instructions on how to remediate it. And as we said before, once it's remediated in AWS, a few hours later, this will be also updated in Security Center.
Got it.
So you can see here really also the AWS recommendations. If I'll go here, I'll go to regulatory compliance as well, as we're bringing the CIS standard.
Now going back to the visualization, I love the fact that we are providing this seamless experience, but is it, I know that someone will ask this question, is it possible to filter the recommendation just for the AWS, for example?
So, and that's an asset that's we really are hoping to integrate as well. For now, you can search by the text,
Okay.
but
Got it.
it's just for the AWS, not yet by looking at to filtering by AWS specifically. We couldn't do that in the inventory, and you can view that there.
Yep.
So let's take, for example, another secure score control. You can see here the AWS recommendation, the GCP here as well.
I understand that all the recommendations that are in preview are not going to affect the secure score. But once these AWS go GA, will those affect secure score as well?
Yes, definitely. Really, this also has been, again, with all the new things we've been introducing recently, so also the preview features are one of them. So for now, this is in public preview. We're still letting customers evaluate it, try it out, and once it's really going to be GA, it will affect the score as well. Yes.
Excellent.
So one more thing I would like to show is in regulatory compliance, as we show different standards for Azure resources. So we also show the ones that we brought in from AWS and GCP. So for example, you can see here I have the GCP sys. That was part of this integration, is also integrated into ASC. I have here the different controls as well. You can see here what's healthy, what's unhealthy. And I can see here which exact ones need to be remediated. For example, in this one, corporate login as well. I can go inside this, view the resources that are relevant, and get as well all the relevant other recommendations for them as well.
That's really good. That's really nice. Yep.
Yes, so that's really how it's all integrated inside the security center.
And the accounts, there is any number of accounts, like limitation, or I can have any accounts I want?
So you can onboard to one subscription several AWS accounts. But the limitation is that you can onboard only the AWS account into one subscription. Since Azure Arc, the machine has to be reflected only in one subscription and can be onboarded, we're limiting it to one account can be onboarded at all of Azure.
Sense. It makes total sense. Yeah, that's really amazing. I really like this feature. I'm going to go back to our conversation here, but I really like how the UI is so friendly. Again, I'm a big fan of the Azure Security Center UI team, Gili and everyone there. They do an amazing job to make things that are extremely complicated to flow so nicely. And again, an awesome job from the entire UX experience team. So very good. So great demo. Thank you for that. Do you have any final considerations or advice related to this capability that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, so first of all, this is really a brand new just came out for public preview. Again, I would be really happy to be seeing customers that are trying it out, giving us feedback, to partner with us as well on their suggestions, requests. This is really something that we're very excited about and would like to get all the feedback as well, just to make it fit for our customers exactly for what they need.
And it's interesting that we have a pattern. Every time that I ask these questions to the guests of the show, they always say the same thing about feedback. So again, we really appreciate your feedback. Make sure to share on the comments below of the video if you are using the feature, or use also the user voice. Again, I'm going to put the hyperlink for the Azure Security Center user voice website. Make sure to test this feature, validate, and give us the feedback. We strive for feedback, and we work to improve the tool day by day. Those guys are doing an amazing job bringing all the things that are very important to you. So Adam, again, thank you very much for taking the time to not only explain this brand new feature, but also demonstrate it.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap, everyone. Thank you for joining another episode of Azure Security Center in the Field. Make sure to subscribe to Microsoft Security Channel. Make sure to share this video to the community and spread the word. Start to utilizing the tool and giving feedback. See you next time.